Hi, it's Michael Guevara, your bow tie literacy guy, with this month's reading selections from PerfectionLearning. Earlier this month I was at a literacy conference in Texas, where I'm from, and it struck me that on the list of invited speakers and presenters that there was not a single person of color. I couldn't let go of this because of thinking about how diverse our students in our classrooms are and how we should be speaking to that individuality and that diversity. And so we want to see that represented in what we bring to the classroom. So this month, I'm focusing on what I'm calling Herstory, or he for she, which are nonfiction stories and memoirs written by women, but particularly by women of color. And so I want to begin with that idea of he for she with I Am a Girl from Africa by Elizabeth Nyamayaro, who tells her story of nearly starving to death. At 8 years old, she's on the verge of death in her home of Zimbabwe when she is rescued by a worker from Amnesty International, which sets her on a goal, on a quest of working for the United Nations and to be able to give back in the way that she was saved and helped. And so we see her take that journey. We see her as she is educating people on AIDS, as she educates people in Africa on river blindness, and ultimately to the point where she creates this campaign, the He for She campaign, which is a solidarity, building solidarity on gender equity and informing men about the importance of health issues, how it saves the women that they love, their mothers and the mothers of their children. And so it's just a beautiful story of Elizabeth and her journey to travel through what she learned from her grandmother, this idea of that I am because we are, and that is the driving force behind her. And we see all the good that she's able to accomplish and how she is so joyous in her journey. Since I first came across Maria Hinojosa in her work on Latino USA, the radio program on NPR, I have been in love with Maria Hinojosa. I was thrilled to read her memoir, Once I Was You, which is memoir, but it is also almost part informational text and history and news, and just such a rich piece of the history that she has lived and reported. Her beginnings as a journalist and coming to this country as an immigrant and being stopped at the border, even though her father is a professor at the University of Chicago. And you see all the turmoil and the pain and just the anguish that's associated with being someone different in this country and trying to earn respect, but also to celebrate your culture and your identity and to hang on to that. Okay, forget what you think you know about being tough, because Unbecoming, a Memoir of Disobedience by Anuradha Bhagwati, is a story that will challenge every notion of that. She grows up the child of Indian parents, very strict and grades matter and Ivy League parents, and she ultimately abandons that lifestyle, Ivy League grad school, and becomes a Marine. You are taken through her story of pain and injury and respect and all of those things that you believe happen in these traditional male institutions. This is a memoir of strength and overcoming struggles and identity and recognizing who you are and ultimately believing in yourself and digging deeper than you ever thought you could to accomplish your goals. It is definitely not a book for the weak, but it is such a book of strength and will really encourage you that you really can achieve more than you expect, but you're going to have to work really hard to make that happen. Broken America by Joanne Goldblum and Colleen Shaddix isn't a memoir. It is a nonfiction text, but it is a great book. For so long, classrooms have used nickel and dimed as a nonfiction text to explore the way different people live in America, but I think Broken America is an updated version of that really speaks to so many of the issues plaguing so many different elements of our society, and it just breaks down how difficult life is. Everything from water and utilities to the way our systems are set up that work against people. It's such an eye-opening and important look at life for so many people in this country. At the end of each chapter, it goes into what can you do, and it has practical steps that people can take in their own lives and in their own communities to make things better for others. In Surviving the White Gaze by Rebecca Carroll, Rebecca is the only Black person in her community. She is adopted. Her parents are artists. They live in New Hampshire, and Rebecca begins to realize that she's different. She takes a ballet class, has a Black teacher, and eventually wants to discover that side of her Blackness. She eventually meets her mother, who is white. She's a Black father. Initially, she struggles with those ideas of her mother having other children and why did her mother not want her, but it becomes so much more because her birth mother is constantly undermining her sense of Blackness and her self-esteem, and ultimately she is finding out who she is as a Black person, as a woman, as a writer, trying to make it in her career. And eventually she discovers through her own chosen family who she is and celebrates her Blackness, her identity. It's a really interesting look and perspective at how we see ourselves, how others see us, and claiming our own identity and loving who we are and getting to choose ultimately who our family is. So I've seen every episode, iteration of Law & Order, and I have to say that I'm pretty much a fan of the classic Law & Order. So I was intrigued by Just Pursuit, a Black prosecutor's fight for fairness by Laura Coates, which completely supported all the problems that I've always had with Law and Order. Not the stories, but the idea of the justice system. And from the very beginning of the book, Laura Coates tells the story of a man has his car stolen. The man who stole the car is arrested. His case is brought to trial. Laura Coates is the prosecutor. And so this man is going to testify. He's all set to do that, to do his part for society. And so his name is entered into the system, and a warrant, over 20 years old, an immigration warrant for him, comes into the system. And right there where he's set to testify, he is arrested and deported. It's horrific how the entire thing plays out. Heartbreaking, and there's nothing that Laura can do to help him. And so here's this man who's only trying to do his part, who is not a criminal, who hasn't hurt anything, hasn't hurt anyone, just is an undocumented person in this country, and because he tried to do the right thing, is deported. And so we see how Laura looks at the criminal justice system and how Black and brown people are overwhelmingly overrepresented in that system. It's an important look to see how maybe our system of justice is really unjust, and that even trying to do your part can really work to make things difficult for others. A Dream Called Home by Ariana Grande. What can I say about this memoir other than I absolutely love it? It is such a love story to writing, becoming a writer, discovery, finding your place in a country, in a university, in life, in someone else's life, and just her travels through becoming the writer that she is. It's just such a tribute to Reina's strength, to her fortitude, to her ambition, to her goals, but also to the people shape who she is and helped her become the writer that she is. And so much for all of those aspiring writers out there. It's never going to happen for them, to see how she overcame that, how she defended her voice and learned to love and respect her story and the way that she could tell that story as only she could. Definitely something you want to pick up. It will encourage you as well as help you recognize the value that we all have as individuals.